Welcome to today's discussion on the latest political developments. I'm Claire.
And I'm Alan. We'll be covering several key stories in this episode.
Let's start with the California governor's race. Republican Steve Hilton has advanced to the general election, where he'll face Democrat Xavier Becerra in November.
That's right. The reporting indicates that Hilton secured his spot by making a strong case for new leadership in the state after more than 15 years of Democratic dominance. What's the context around his campaign so far?
From what I've gathered, Hilton initially led the field, but faced a tightening race. There were also some controversies surrounding Donald Trump's accusations of election rigging in the state.
I saw that. Trump made those claims without evidence, which added a layer of complexity to the primary. How does Hilton's campaign video reflect his strategy for the general election?
The video likely highlights his key policy positions and personal story. The article mentions that he's emphasizing the need for new leadership, which suggests he's focusing on change and potentially criticizing the current administration's record.
That makes sense. With Becerra being a former state attorney general and Biden administration health secretary, he'll likely be a formidable opponent. How do the candidates' backgrounds influence their campaigns?
Becerra's experience in legal and healthcare matters gives him a strong foundation, while Hilton is positioning himself as an outsider who can bring change. The contrast between their backgrounds and political histories will likely be a significant factor in the campaign.
Moving on, there's been a significant development in U.S.-Iran relations. President Trump recently stated that Iran has taken too long to negotiate and will now have to pay the price.
Yes, this comes amid heightened tensions between the U.S. and Iran, with recent exchanges of strikes in the region. Trump's statement suggests an escalation in the conflict.
The reporting indicates that there are ongoing efforts to continue talks, but Trump's comments imply a hardening of the U.S. position. What are the potential implications of this stance?
If the U.S. continues down this path, it could lead to further militarization and increased tensions in the region. The international community might also be drawn into the conflict, depending on how other countries respond to the escalating situation.
That's a concerning scenario. The last thing we need is another major conflict in the Middle East. How does this fit into Trump's broader foreign policy strategy?
Trump's approach often involves a mix of diplomacy and military posturing. In this case, his statement seems to be a clear signal that the U.S. is not willing to wait indefinitely for Iran to come to the negotiating table.
Let's switch gears to the main Senate race. Graham Plattner has won the Democratic primary and will now face Republican Senator Susan Collins in November.
That's right. Plattner, an oyster farmer and former chair of the Maine Democratic Party, is now set to challenge Collins, who is a well-established figure in the Senate.
This is shaping up to be a high-stakes race. Collins has been a moderate Republican, which might affect how she campaigns against Plattner. What's the current dynamic looking like?
The reporting suggests that Plattner's background as an oyster farmer could bring a fresh perspective to the race, potentially appealing to voters looking for a change. Collins, on the other hand, has a long history in the Senate and will likely rely on her experience and moderate stance to win over voters.
It's an interesting contrast. Plattner's outsider status might resonate with some voters, while Collins's institutional knowledge could be a significant advantage. How do the national implications of this race play out?
The Senate is closely divided, so this race could be crucial in determining control. If Plattner wins, it could shift the balance in favor of the Democrats, while a Collins victory would maintain the current Republican seat.
Shifting to a different story, Bill Gates is set to testify before a congressional panel investigating the Jeffrey Epstein files.
Yes, Gates will be appearing behind closed doors as part of the House Oversight Committee's investigation. This comes as several powerful figures linked to Epstein are being scrutinized.
The committee has been interviewing various witnesses, and transcripts are often released afterward. What are the key questions likely to be asked during Gates's testimony?
The investigation is focused on understanding Epstein's connections to influential individuals and any potential wrongdoing. Gates's interactions with Epstein will likely be a major focus, particularly if there were any financial or personal ties.
Gates has previously acknowledged meeting Epstein but has also stated that he regrets those interactions. How might his testimony impact the broader investigation?
Gates's testimony could provide valuable insight into his relationship with Epstein and potentially shed light on other connections between Epstein and other high-profile figures.
Let's move on to the South Carolina governor's race. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Yvette and State Attorney General Alan Wilson have advanced to a runoff for the Republican nomination.
That's right. The runoff will determine who will be the Republican candidate to face the Democratic nominee in the general election. The winner is likely to succeed Governor Henry McMaster in the heavily Republican state.
The reporting indicates that Representative Nancy Mace, who had a high-profile campaign, did not advance. What were some of the key dynamics in this primary?
The primary was crowded, with multiple candidates vying for the nomination. Yvette and Wilson's advancement suggests they were able to appeal to the Republican base in the state.
With the runoff coming up, what are the main issues likely to be debated between Yvette and Wilson?
The candidates will likely focus on their policy positions, particularly on issues like education, economy, and public safety, which are typically important in gubernatorial races.
As we wrap up today's discussion, it's clear that there are several critical races and political developments unfolding across the country. We'll continue to follow these stories and bring you updates.
And that's all for today's episode. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. We'll be back soon with more news and analysis.